We have love for Africa. There is hope, hope in Africa. We are serving Africa. We are serving Africa. With all passion, we are serving Africa.
Welcome to Serving Africa, where we'll be looking at the various challenges facing Africa. Today, we will also be looking at what is being done to solve these issues and in improving the living conditions of millions of people living in Africa. Joining me today in the studios here in London are two eminent personalities from the Humanity First charity and the International Association of Ahmadiyya Architects and Engineers, IAAE. They are in the persons of Mr. Rehman, who is the Humanity First Country Manager for Burkina Faso, and Mr. Irfan Qureshi, who is the Chairman for the Water for Life Committee for IAAE. Water is very essential for life, but unfortunately, millions around the globe lack regular access to safe drinking water or even for proper sanitation, which leads to increase in waterborne diseases from diarrhea to cholera, and in most cases leads to the death of thousands of people.
Shockingly, over 50% of sub-Saharan Africans lack access to safe drinking water. This is due to a lack of infrastructure and the natural climate in Africa, with nearly a third of all those in sub-Saharan Africa living in a water-scarce environment. What this means is that women and children are forced to travel long distances on foot, carrying clean water back to their families, with some women even having to carry a barrel weighing as much as 30 kilograms, taking half an hour for every round trip. However, even this is rarely clean water, with 115 people in Africa dying every hour from diseases linked to poor sanitation, hygiene, and contaminated water. It also contributes to diarrhea, which is the second biggest killer of children under 5 in sub-Saharan Africa.
Mr. Irfan Qureshi, you are the chairman of Water for Life for the IAAE, which is the International Association of Ahmadiyya Architects and Engineers here in United Kingdom and around the world. What do you make of this crisis, water crisis?
This water crisis is so severe that a study from one of the universities actually states that 40% of existing hand pumps set up by NGOs in Africa are not working. And 40% seems a very high number. And what happens is, due to the lack of maintenance regime, the water systems that are set up, be it hand pumps or solar pumps or any gravity-fed systems, they break down due to the lack of maintenance regime. So people have to rely on other sources like muddy dugouts, streams, and obviously when there is pollutants going into water and people use that water to drink, obviously they will fall ill. And the open wells is also a major issue, where people use dirty buckets in an open well, and as they fetch their water out and they use that water in their houses, and that water is not safe for people to drink, so it's not potable.
So Rehman, you are the country manager for Burkina Faso with Humanity First. What's your take about this water crisis, especially for Africa?
Water is essential, whether you're in Africa, Europe, or any other continent. For human life, water is an essential element. And we know that around 97% of this water is in oceans, which is not drinkable format. only 3% of the world's water, which is in a form which we can drink. So it is not that it's very scarce, but in some areas, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, it lacks where it actually is needed. So parts of Africa where a young child, a girl of maybe 12 or 10, has to wake up every day in the morning, and instead of going to the school and getting ready for it, she takes a walk to a nearby pond or a river or another water source, and she may have to do that for a few hours each way. So imagine you take a jerry can or a pot or anything with you, and you go and fetch that water for your family, for your sibling, and when you come back home, your sibling or your family asks you for a sip of water. But the irony is, after so much effort, you arrived home with the water, and sometimes knowingly that this dirty water will kill you. And sometimes you may be not aware of it, but there are lots of germs which causes loss of life, and many thousands of people, especially the children, lost their life. Now it is said that in sub-Saharan Africa, at least 800,000 children lose their life. Now, if you really do the maths, it's around one child in every 22nd, which is dying in Africa related to these waterborne diseases.
Irfan, what do you have to add on what you have said and he has also said in terms of the crisis at hand?
The crisis is, the reason it's severe is it's not that there is no water in Africa. There's plenty of water in Africa. Africa is neglected. It's neglected because the governments and the ministries that are involved in trying to fetch water for the continent, they are not playing an active role as they should be. There are things that the Millennium Development Goals, the Sustainable Development Goals, these are in place, but these goals need to be fulfilled. And how do they get fulfilled is another matter. Governments need to try more. There needs to be a robust effort by NGOs and governments collective to ensure that this problem can be alleviated. Now, there are different challenges. There are challenges can be provision of sustainable drinking water infrastructure is a huge challenge in itself. And how do you do that? Is governments need to have strategies in line with the United Nations Millennium Development Goals. Some governments do, some governments do not. There is, obviously, it's well known, there's corruption, which is rampant.
So
in
corruption has something to do with the water crisis. Is that what you're saying?
I would say so.
Zia, would you say just corruption and lack of government interaction are the issues?
No, there are several issues. There's not one single issue. So we know that the population is increasing. So you have your demand is increasing, and you have the same amount of resources available to you. So that is a factor which contributes. You have more people to drink from the same source. Then you have the world, the weather patterns or the climate is actually changing. That change is due to various factors. Some are introduced by humans and some other factors, but that climate is changing. So we do have same amount of rainfall, but actually it falls with a different pattern what you used to do before. So people in Africa who used to rely heavily on the rainfall and they reserve that, now that pattern change. Now when that pattern changes, the underground water level, that also, the reserve which we have by nature, that also reduces. So sometimes the existing well, which used to work, no longer works. That reservoir is actually like, if I give you an analogy, it's like a bank. If you put deposit in a rainy season in there, then obviously you can take it out in the summer season. But if we don't look after that, if we meddle with the environment somehow, then we don't have that deposit available to us whenever we need it. There are many other factors. Water is also useful for farming. So modern farming techniques, which we are trying to introduce, they take out water in a large scale from one area. What does that mean? We still have the same reservoir, but somewhere downstream, somebody is not going to have that water which we've taken out for large-scale farming. Similarly, there are other aspects. The water doesn't care about boundaries. You see, if you look at Africa, one of the strange things is Africa is divided into many shapes of countries.
Yeah.
And the water doesn't care if I need a passport to go from one area to another. It just rolls on.
Now let's get into details about the water pumps that you have been providing. With Humanity First, which countries have you been assisting, and how many?
So we've heard the need in Africa is quite dire, and Humanity First has been active in 52 countries. And this Water for Life project particularly, we've been implementing in 16 countries in Africa, some in West Africa and also in East Africa. I can name few: Burkina Faso, Benin, on the Togo, Sierra Leone on the east side, Tanzania, Kenya. But wherever there is a need and we can help and reach out to our fellow human being, we make an effort. In terms of how many numbers, so far we have done 1,850. That is in the West and East Africa.
Brilliant. And IAAE, what sort of types or kinds of pumps have you been installing? Is it this kind of manual ones, or what sort of pumps have you been installing in Africa?
The installation of pumps really depends on the need of a certain village. Now, we've been rehabilitating existing hand pumps that are broken down. So as I mentioned earlier in the program, where the lack of maintenance regime has allowed pumps to fail, and where pumps have failed, what we try to do is rehabilitate an existing broken pump. So remove the old pump, flush out the debris, clean, make it new, and then install a new pump. That's called rehabilitation.
So are they pumps which have already been fixed initially by IAAE, or just any pump?
It will be any pump. There are some pumps that IAAE had previously fixed which need maintenance, so we go back there and maintain them. But some pumps had been set up by other NGOs.
Okay.
But due to the lack of maintenance regime, they have eventually broken down.
Brilliant. What really advise your choice of where to help? Is it where there are Muslims or Ahmadis, or you just go anywhere else?
Our objective is to serve humanity regardless of the religion or race. Wherever there is a need for this basic necessity of life, we go there, and we try and assess the need first. So Humanity First is permanently located in these countries, some of the names I mentioned to you before. So the local team actually goes and do assessment of the need, regardless of their color, race, or religion.
Regardless of color, race, religion, are we making an impact? IAAE and Humanity First, is your work impacting on the huge crisis that
Absolutely.
we are facing in Africa?
The provision of water to the needy people will impact lives, and it is creating a huge impact. The lives change if a woman has to walk 2-3 miles just to fetch a bucket of water, and if there's water in her village, at her doorstep, she's got plenty of time on her hands to do other daily cause of life.
So are you saying that your work has been able to help people like that?
So those number of pumps that I mentioned, they serve around 2.1 million people in Africa. We know that there are over 300 million people in sub-Saharan Africa who don't have safe drinking water, and we were able to make a small dent on those numbers. So that was our effort, and whatever possible, we do that. And obviously, those, as I mentioned, those young girls or boys who go and fetch those water, and it has been estimated, we spend millions of hours, or they spend actually millions of hours collecting that water. And if those hours are saved, obviously that is spent on bringing some food by working or learning something or going to schools. So we are directly helping the communities in Africa.
They are directly helping communities in Africa through the work that Humanity First is doing. Now let's look at what is happening on the ground.
My name is Abdul Karim Bandura. I live in Lompa community. It was very difficult to get water in our community. People get water about 1 mile off from the swamp. Now, Humanity First have installed hand pump water well in our community. Now let me come and show you the water well. And this is the water well. More than 1,000 people are getting water from this water well. I just want to say thank you to Humanity First. Thank you very much.
Apart from the water pumps, do you have any other things that you use or any other mechanisms in helping with this water crisis?
Yes.
I was going to say Humanity First actually has installed water purification systems. So this is where we have a larger population that needs help. Most of these hand pumps are in a village where the population is perhaps 500 to 2,000, and people and the livestock can benefit. But there are larger projects which have been implemented, and also apart from purification system, there are water dams which have been set up, so water can then be brought down from the dams to nearby places where livestock
so water dams
drink.
And any other things from IEEE?
From within IEEE, we target population who are in extreme dire need. So we've in Africa, there's no lack of sunlight, so we've started setting up solar water pumps. Okay. So a solar using solar water technology, we pump water into an overhead tank, and that water is circulated to different tap points in a village. That is part of our village project scheme. And where a single hand pump will be a single source of water, but these different tap points can be different, various sources within a certain village, like have 10 taps.
So IEEE focuses on water pumps.
In terms of IEEE, there are various, it depends on the village, it depends on the need. We've implemented rainwater harvesting systems as well. So the water is collected from roof pitches, collected into tanks, and that water is purified for use of the local population. We've implemented the irrigation system, the drip irrigation technology. So water is then channeled into the areas where lands are irrigated. We've also implemented the village project scheme, which is a solution for the entire village, and it's for feeding the masses as such. Where a hand pump could be a single supplying water from a single hand pump, but a village project does quite a number of things. It helps with sanitation aspects. It helps with providing water for irrigation. It also helps with providing water to even the cattle, because cattle also needs water for survival, and from that
human and agricultural purposes. We do have one of our eminent personalities who is the chairman of Humanity First Sierra Leone, Mr. Sidiki Sanko, on the line. Welcome to 7 Africa, Mr. Sidiki Sanko.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum, and peace be unto you.
Wa alaikum salam, and peace be unto you, sir. We would like to know about the activities of Humanity First on the grounds in Sierra Leone. What have you been doing to help solve this water crisis problem?
Since the establishment of Humanity First in Sierra Leone in 2002, the Water for Life project has been our pivotal project. And of course, it has been one of the most successful projects we have been doing. We have not been doing it much like what other NGOs have been doing. But inshallah, we are targeting the most deprived areas, or the people that are highly in need of pure and safe drinking water. These are the people we have been targeting over the years. And alhamdulillah, in that direction, we have helped, or we have established more than 55 water wells across the country. And when you look at these water wells, they are serving the real beneficiaries, or those people that are vulnerable to water disease and these other water-related illnesses.
So, Mr. Sanko, political instability, climatic changes have affected Sierra Leone. What is Humanity First doing on the grounds to help elevate such crisis?
Yes, of course, if you have been to Sierra Leone, especially the capital city, Freetown, you realize that Freetown is in a mountainous area. And what is happening now, before this time, we used to have our Water for Life project, most provinces. But now the capital city of Sierra Leone, which is Freetown, now is having one of the most acute water shortages. So what is happening now, we have also paying more attention in the western area, which is Freetown, and we are now digging, or we are sinking water wells in the major areas of Freetown. And that's what we are doing. Presently, almost half of our Water for Life projects are centered around Freetown. And you already know, because it's the capital city, the population there is very, very high. So we are targeting a large number of people now.
Renovating old water pumps and also installing new ones. What sort of impact is it having on the communities back in Sierra Leone?
When you talk of water, everybody knows water is life. And for most of the areas wherein we are installing these water wells, you find out that there's never been any water well there before, or there is no pure and clean drinking water for the people. So it's actually having a serious impact on the people health-wise. Now the people, based on their response, we say, now it's better, we are saving time because the water well is very close to us. And at least our children, they have pure drinking water now. That is helping also their development. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sidiki Sanko, the chairman of Humanity First Sierra Leone, for joining us. Mr. Zia, where else is Humanity First touching lives in the bid to solve this water crisis in Africa?
The other bigger impact in this area is the sanitation. Now, the sanitation is also which impacts the human life, actually. The waterborne diseases are quite large, mainly in sub-Saharan Africa. The impact is huge. As we said, there is a child dying every 20 seconds.
due to waterborne
due
diseases.
to waterborne diseases. This is because there is an open pond where villagers go and take their water, and it's the same place the animals, all the other cattle, they also come and take their water from the same pond. So there are simple things we can educate our brothers and sisters in Africa, and those diseases, those germs can be prevented.
Yeah.
So this is another aspect which we are working and educating in parts of sub-Saharan Africa.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Irfan Qureshi, what is the reach and impact of IAAE in Africa?
As we said before, 2,000 pumps is a number, but there are large number of broken pumps, large number of water installations that are not working, and the impact has to, because this is an ongoing project. The pumps that are being set up, they have to reach out to many millions of people still, and we've only, as we said earlier, made a small dent. 40% is a huge number.
But the small dent is still huge in terms of monetary terms. How do you get funding?
With IAAE, the funding is through the internal funding through the Ahmadiyya Muslim Association. His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, may Allah be his helper. He approved the budget for us, an annual budget, and we work out of that budget. So that's how all our projects are funded.
So talking about funding as well, how is Humanity First funded? Zia?
First is a registered charity, and we raise funds from various sources, from a grassroots level where we go door to door, stand on the street, use all the marketing techniques to raise funds. We also apply for funds from organizations and various sources which would like to help us. And the details could be found on our website of how well we spend that fund. Collecting is one part, but making sure that every penny which we collect is actually goes to the Africa and people in Africa, and we serve them with every penny we collect.
What would you say needs to be done in the future, moving on?
It is very important to do whatever setups that are being put up. They need to be sustainable, and sustainability is a very great buzzword at the moment in any industry, but especially when you're setting up people who are in dire need, setting up water installations for them. A simple information board right next to the pump, saying if the pump breaks down, people can contact to repair it. And as Zia mentioned earlier, training people, equipping them with the knowledge of repairing something that's broken down is very important. So that's the key.
Talking about IAAE, Humanity First, all organizations under the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community in Islam, do you collaborate at all, Zia?
Yes, we do. So we do work hand in hand with IAAE. We've done several projects in various countries together, and we've harnessed the expertise from IAAE. Similarly, we do have collaboration with other organizations, Water for Aid, Oxfam, Water Poverty. So there are other organizations we work to make sure we take the best options available to us to resolve these issues. So we do work hand in hand with IAAE as well.
Any final submissions before we wrap it up in 15 seconds?
Serving Africa is a huge challenge. We discuss the surface of the challenges we face in implementing these projects, but it's a great cause as well. When we go home, we turn on the tap, the water comes in, we can drink, we want to change the color, you can add some juice, you have so many options here. But looking at our fellow beings in such a dire condition, one thing we do emphasize and do make sure it happens, we train them, we enable them so they can stand on their own feet. So as you know, they say in Africa that if you give fish to somebody, he will stay alive for a day. But if you teach him how to fish, you have given him tools to survive, actually.
Any final remarks from you, sir?
Again, it's that a collaborative effort needs to be done with all parties. The Millennium Development Goals that I mentioned earlier, the Sustainable Development Goals that we mentioned earlier, all that needs to create an impact at grassroots level. And unless that is being done, we won't be able to help our fellow human beings.
Well, this is all time will permit us on 7 Africa, coming to you right from the MTA International Studios here in London. Make a date with us next time.
We have love for Africa. There is hope in Africa. We are serving Africa. We are serving Africa. With all passion, we are serving Africa.